quick message before we start. Nerd culture, can you please leave us alone? Leave Thomas alone. Okay. Like, granted, there's been like a whole bunch of different kind of statements as to where Thomas falls in nerd culture, effectively, and like some of it varying from it has no place because it's a children's show, definitely not a hypocritical statement, I must add, or moments like this video we're about to watch, that it's got such messed up themes in it. And I'm sorry, I from this moment I heard about this, like, way back, from the moment, people like Phantom Strider, Tomska, who I met at Comic-Con, actually. Not Comic-Con, MegaCon, a while back, which was cool. I didn't ask him about this. Well, obviously he didn't know about me, but still. And, countless others. You see the top 5 trending videos where they talk about, top 10 most dystopian moments in Thomas. And, oh my god. My friend told me, right, that, apparently, in the history class of my school, one of the history teachers used an episode of Thomas as an analogy for dictatorships. If you know your Thomas controversies, then you know which episode I'm talking about, and I am more than 90% sure it's going to be on this list, so we'll find it. And I can tell you guys all I want in the comments, but oh dear God, what have I got myself into? This is honestly going to be one of the weirder videos I've done a reaction to, and one that will probably give me the most unique reaction. Speaking of which, I apologize this isn't another Trampy reaction. I do apologize about that, but that series will return. As you probably know, I've been having some technical difficulties with OBS, so this is like a smaller video for me to continue to kind of just experiment on. Also kind of, because I want to do more general reactions. I know this is still like a Thomas reaction, but stuff like this, these kind of short, interesting kind of topic, not necessarily watch your MS Mojo, but just anything more general that you guys really want to see, please, like, leave a comment down below as to what you want to see me react to. I've said this countless times, but I need your guys' input. Seriously, I need your guys' input. Yeah, this should be an interesting one. And already we're starting with...
No one wanted Duke. They thought him too old.
They thought him too
Welcome
much of a homicidal
to Ms.
maniac.
Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 times Thomas the Tank Engine traumatized us.
Thomas the Tank Engine.
For this list, we'll be looking at some of this iconic kid show's most messed up and freaky moments. Do you remember a Thomas scene that terrified you? Drop us a comment below and let us know. Number 10, the Dream Song.
This is going to be so tough. What have I got myself into?
Here's a deep cut in the form of a bonus feature from the direct-to-DVD special Calling All Engines.
As the night begins to creep fast across the sky.
I'm not a fan of that singer. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a fan.
The song is a dream sequence showing the engine's fears about what might happen to them when their working lives on the railway come to an end.
Remember how James was so proud and so vain. Look at...
How have I never heard of this? As someone who does music on his channel, how have I never heard of this song?
him now, well, he won't be again.
Seeing beloved characters
sound
like
effects.
James, Percy, and Gordon reduced to mere scarecrows and children's playgrounds is surprisingly depressing, even if it's only imagined. The melody and instrumentation of the song don't help either.
Remember how Edward would help and he'd share.
Fuck off, Emily.
Farmer McCall doesn't now seem to care.
Everything sounds creepy and twisted,
That's such
especially
clever
the
use
key
of that.
change going into the
That's
last
so
verse.
clever.
This was cut from the main running time of the special, and it's not hard to see why.
Oh, it was actually cut, I see. From like the main running time. It was still bonus features. So it wasn't. This isn't like lost media, is what I'm saying. This isn't lost media.
Number 9. Smudger becomes a generator.
I actually agree with this. I do genuinely agree with this. It's just, this is one of the moments where the show's kind of like, and even as a kid, I was just like, okay, that's kind of cruel.
On the island of Sodor, a lot of emphasis is placed on how useful or not you are.
He was proud of this and
I love how it says that, as if it's just like some kind of villain in a. We'll probably get to that in a moment, but still.
loved to keep the little engines
It's just
in
like, it depends on how useful or not you are.
order.
If you misbehave or don't perform to a high enough standard, you will be publicly shamed for it. Smudger's fate is a great example of this. His cocky and brash ways mean he is careless and often derails. As punishment, his manager removes his wheels and turns him into
Name-dropping the terminology. She's name-dropping the terminology so poor.
a generator behind the engine
poor.
shed, in full view of all of his friends.
He turned him into a generator.
He's not friends, hardly.
He's still out there behind our shed. He'll never move again.
It's such a needlessly extreme response.
After that,
I wonder what George Carlin's response to delivering that line was just like, well, fuck!
Stewart and Falcon became really useful engines, and all three were happy together for many years.
Smudger
Be
is
happy, you
annoying,
son of a
sure,
bitch.
but breaking him up and making an example of him is simply way too harsh a message to be sending out to children. Number 8. Duke is buried alive.
No! 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 Wrong! For heaven... What?
The season 4 opener, Grand Puff, begins with the engines
Grand
asking
Puff?
Thomas to tell them a story with a happy ending.
What we need, suggested Toby, is to listen to a story. Yes, agreed Percy, a mysterious story. But, added Duck, it must have a happy ending.
4.5 minutes later, the episode concludes with legendary engine Duke being closed away.
Legendary engine. I know, but still, it's like, just the idea of like, this is like just the equivalent of JFK, of some big celebrity. Oh my, just some big celebrity being killed, being buried alive, like.
Way in a shed and buried
LeBron
under
James
a
got
landslide,
buried alive
lost to the
today.
depths of time.
That's not a happy ending, cried Percy.
In
duh.
fairness, the context makes
Turn on the fucking TV. I want to watch Survivor.
it clear this episode is a two-parter, and it goes without saying Duke will be discovered safely in the follow-up episode. But if you were to see Grand Puff without its sequel, you'd never know Duke was rescued, and his
Yeah, but who does that? You know there's a sequel. Who does that?
tale would end with him essentially being buried alive.
So they did remember, sighed Duke happily.
You know, for kids. Number 7.
Yes. Definitely don't ask Mr.
Percy's
Please
ghostly
tell me they're gonna
trick.
play the theme.
The early seasons of Thomas don't lack for savage put-downs between the engines.
Rubbish, said Thomas. You're too fat. You need exercise.
Aw, man.
But even by those standards, Season 2's Ghost Train pushes the boundary. Percy
Yay! She said the British title.
plays a trick on Thomas to get back at his rude behavior, disguising himself as a ghost to scare him. This sequence is terrifying enough. Just look at the atmosphere.
Do let's pretend I'm a ghost and scare
Hey, Ringo.
Thomas. That'll teach him to say I'm
That'll
a silly
teach
little
him.
engine.
But what landed this moment on our list is Thomas's response to Toby before the trick plays out. Toby implies that Percy has died, or at least been seriously injured.
This is fair. This is actually fair. Like, how would you like it if somebody told you your best friend had died? If somebody told your best friend that you had died, and the best friend's response was just, "Oh, poor fella. Oh, damn it, I'm gonna be late." Like, how would you react? Well, you wouldn't react, obviously, because you're dead, but you know my point.
In an accident. But Thomas is more concerned that the accident will make him late for his next service.
Botheration. That means I'll be late.
And they're supposed
Then again, there is the counter-argument, though, that Thomas didn't believe Toby at first, and so it was kind of like, he was doing it, he was kind of just playing along sarcastically, and was just like, oh, Percy's fine, literally, just...
to be best friends. Great moral, gang. Number 6. Pop goes the diesel. On paper, this scene is pretty harmless.
Good morning, purred Diesel in an oily voice. Pleased to meet you, Duck. Is that James and Henry and Gordon?
Duck humbles Diesel by giving him a train of old trucks with jammed brakes.
Oh, I know where they're going with this. I know where they're going with this.
So Diesel can't move them. Simple stuff, right? Unfortunately, the execution of this sequence feels like it probably could have been done a bit differently. The super intense close-up shots of Diesel and the trucks straining and jerking forward are seriously creepy.
Pull, push, backwards, forward. Oh.
And the noises that narrator Ringo Starr makes as the trucks are being dragged are, well,
Hilarious.
It's not difficult to hear them a certain way. If you watched this episode as a
What is this saying about nerd culture?
kid, you probably weren't thinking that way.
They scream, we can't, we won't.
But looking back now as an adult, you sort of feel like Starr maybe gave away more of his secrets than you ever needed to know. Number 5. Scruffy gets torn apart.
I can't. I can't. How am I supposed to get through this? How am I supposed to get through this without my head being blown to bits?
We've already featured one example of Sodor residents being publicly shamed for bad behavior, but this punishment takes things to a whole new level.
All of us no use at all.
Why? Of course they had to play Michelangelo's version. R.I.P. by the way. R.I.P.
Very clever, says Betty.
Come on, it's just that's the best joke ever.
Oliver and Toad plot to pay back the ringleader of the troublesome trucks, Scruffy, except it turns out the plan is little more than physical abuse. Oliver
He didn't intend to. That's not what he was trying to do.
pulls the leader so hard he quite literally falls apart in full view of the station. Toad and Duck just sit and smile while Scruffy makes noises of pain and is ultimately left in pieces, his body having been pulled apart almost completely.
Then there was trouble. Well, Oliver.
If this isn't my most viewed reaction, I swear to God. Please make this my most viewed reaction. The world needs to see this.
So you don't know your own strength, is that it?
He's patched up and mended by the end of the episode, but it's made clear he was never the same again. When people say Thomas is weirdly authoritarian, this is the sort of thing they mean.
Scruffy has learned his lesson and says nothing at all.
Number 4. The Pouncing Truck. Jump scares and uncanny visual edits probably aren't what come to mind when you think of Thomas and Friends. And if this example of them being used is anything to go by, it's probably for the best they were a rarity.
Is it the one from Haunted Henry?
The Troublesome Trucks music video is pretty sedate and straightforward for the most part. Like most of the Thomas music videos, it's a simple, kid-friendly song set to stock footage from the show itself. Except for some reason, the
I think you can have wooden brakes just as long as they don't get you killed. Watch it. Watch it now.
editors decided to add in this crazy jump scare for no reason.
No one is expecting it, they pounce.
The truck's face is creepy enough already.
Okay, I actually didn't know about that. I did not know about that. This video got something right! This video got something right!
Why did
That's
they feel the
actually
need to edit it
terrifying,
like this?
to be fair. I'm actually scared. Well done. Well done. That got me. Well done. I've never seen that
Nobody
before.
needs to see this,
How have I never seen that before?
quite frankly. Number 3. Spiteful brake van is squashed to death. Another entry, another misbehaving piece of rolling stock being battered to smithereens by an engine.
You're a muckle nuisance, said Donald. It's to leave you behind I'd be wanting.
This time, it's the so-called spiteful brake van. What makes this moment so traumatizing is that it
is
actually features what seems to
overanalyzing.
be as good as
Just overanalyzing.
death in the Thomas universe.
We'll show them.
The spiteful brake van is crushed so violently that his face detaches from the rest of his body, and you even see it being
This
crane lifted
is
away and out of shot.
I
Overanalyzing.
might have known it would be Douglas, he said.
Absolutely no pity or sorrow is shown either. It's strongly implied that he's straight up been crushed to death by Douglas, and the fact that he's never seen again in the show supports this. Farewell, Breakvan, we hardly knew you.
The Fat Controller was making up his mind about something. But that's another story.
Number 2, the giant boulder. What could be worse than being crushed to death by an engine? Almost being crushed to death by a rampaging boulder, that's what.
I think it's watching me, said Rusty nervously. How can it be? Boulders don't have eyes.
And not just any old boulder, but a boulder that sometimes spawns an evil face and is strongly implied to be alive. The boulder appears to want to take revenge on
Before you
Sir
ask, that's
Topham
a
Hatt's
Rockwell
decision
song,
to
okay?
build a new
A
quarry.
Rockwell
The
song.
chaos and destruction it causes as it rolls furiously around the island is genuinely terrifying.
It's running loose, yelled Rheneas. His driver drove him back as fast as he could.
Yikes!
It's like Indiana Jones, but somehow even more wild and menacing. And the episode's ending, which suggests the boulder is still alive and waiting for its next move, is a truly spine-chilling moment. A great but
Yeah, and you don't use the logic, the boulder's never seen again.
deeply unnerving episode of Thomas.
So
Rusty is sure that on a clear night it is gazing up at the mountain,
I get where they're coming from, but the logic is so flawed.
and that its sighs are being carried on the wind to where it once used to stand, proud and silent.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get
Hey,
notified
look,
about our
guys,
latest
better
videos.
shows
You'll have
that
the
are
option to be
apparently
notified for
better
occasional videos
than
or all of them. If you're on your phone, make
Thomas
sure
the
you go
Tank
into your
Engine.
settings and switch on notifications.
You know what? Unironically, they probably are.
Number 1.
Yeah.
Henry gets bricked up in.
Do we even need to watch this? We all know where this is going. This is the episode that literally my history teacher used this as an example in class as an analogy for dictatorships. That actually was taught in a school.
Inside a tunnel. You all knew this was coming.
Once, an engine attached to a train was afraid of a few drops of rain.
One of the very first
I'm going
episodes
mad.
of Thomas ever.
I'm actually-
The sad
I am
story of Henry
descending
features what is,
into
without a
insanity.
doubt, the most messed up and traumatic moment this show had to offer. After stopping in a tunnel to avoid getting wet on a rainy day, Sir Topham Hatt decides that the only solution is to take away Henry's rails and brick him up inside the tunnel.
We shall take away your rails, he said, and leave you here for always and always and always.
The sequence where
I
workers
mention
build
and
the
always
wall
and
in front of
always and
Henry
always
is
and
weirdly
always and always?
unsettling, and the narrator's outro monologue just makes us sad. Just look at Henry's face. He does get let out in the next episode, but that doesn't make up for how bafflingly messed up and seriously cruel this all is.
You wonder if he would ever be allowed to pull trains again. But I think he deserved his punishment. Don't you?
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this.
No, I do not. Okay, let's look at this rationally. Let's sort this out. Let's get rid of all the nostalgia, get rid of all the bias. Let's talk about this rationally. Do they have fair points? Yes. Like, do I see where they're coming from? Yes. Do I see why other people may perceive it in that way? Yes. But Thomas there were a lot of dark moments that were missed there. I think it nailed the big ones, like Rusty and the Boulder, Ghost Train. They were the big ones for me. Haunted Henry, Duncan Gets Spooked. Like, all those are thematically dark. There's a difference between interpreting these metaphors and metaphors that are actually there. I get art is all about interpretation, and that's why I have some lenience towards this. Is the fact that this is interpretation. But people have clung on to it so much and have literally overanalyzed that they're missing why. Like, and people are just like, they look at the Thomas fandom, and this is one of the main reasons the Thomas fandom is in its own separate bubble. I don't consider myself I consider myself a member, but I just don't like, obviously, but that's not important. Like, I'm like, obviously I'm part of other fandoms as well, but like, the whole point here is that people look at this as like the fact when they don't even bother to go into the research behind why it was like that. It's just popular. And I get this is what culture does. They take things out of context and they make a story out of it because that's what's so entertaining. When they ramp things up to 100, that's when it becomes like entertaining for people. But Thomas wasn't designed for that. It was obviously entertaining, but it wasn't designed to be like, it had a different thing. It was different. And I'm just like, what is this trying to say about like the lack of imagination in our world? I'm not saying like people would I'm not saying there aren't some dated stuff in there. Like, I get like trapping an engine in a tunnel can be seen as like a very, very cruel punishment. You wouldn't put a person in there, but it's a fucking train. It has a face, but it's a fucking train. It's an analogy for human beings. And, okay, that's where I can see the flaw. If it's an analogy, then why is it here? Why is a train here? Why would a human be there in the first place? Where did that idea come from? Well, as a matter of fact, there is a counter-argument to that counter-argument. There are events which ought to be based off real-life railway crashes. And putting humanity into those engines doesn't change the fact that they are engines. They just embody human-like traits. They aren't actually humans. You feel sympathy for them, you feel things for them, but they're not humans. They aren't. I think that's just the main thing that people are getting wrong here, is that these are trains, not humans. We don't have the same chemical makeup as them. Genetic makeup, sorry, not chemical makeup. We don't have the same genetic makeup as them. It's just an analogy. It's a metaphor for the human-like traits that they have. They act like humans. They puff back and forth like they're having conversation. The chuffing sounds like they're having conversations with each other. They feel alive. It's like, okay, let me put it this way. Would you say the same thing about animal testing? I mean, yeah, PETA has, and the RSPCA has, but like animals that are used for like testing, would you feel remorse for that? Would you feel like that's an analogy for dictatorships? No. Would you say the same? Because they're animals. You have a human disconnect from them. And the same is here. Sure, it's a fictional show and it's like, it's teaching lessons, but these aren't humans. These are engines. How many times do I have to emphasize it? I think I've got my point across, and I'm going to end this video right here. But sorry if this did come across as slightly ranty, this video, but I just wanted to get this out and see how this came out. But I really kind of wanted to get my thoughts out there as to why I feel this is. But honestly, interesting, and I think I can see where they're coming from, but the logic is flawed. So, MS Mojo, you're not going to watch this, but Jesus Christ, get your act together, because this show has more to it than you're letting on. And that goes for all of nerd culture. This show has more to it. And that's why I've stuck around. even though the fandom is in a bit of a toxic cesspool at the moment. This is why I stuck around, because I have passion for it. I have passion for the show. I have passion for the thematic material. I have, like, I'm not a fucking, and don't you dare twist my words, because I'm not fucking passionate about making a fucking dictatorship. I'm not Hitler, but just leave the show alone, man. It's just doing its thing, and it's being creative. Nobody thinks like this about any other show. Like, it has the same, like, they still treat it like creepy, but I don't know, man. This world is so fucked in the head. This world is so fucked. But yeah, honestly, I'm probably just sounding like a gibbering wreck to you guys, and I'm probably just sounding like a bit of an arse right now. But I hope you enjoyed this. I definitely did. I know I'm sounding like a bit of a ranting arsehole about right now, but I actually enjoyed this. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. This is Alyssa Lau speaking. Cheerio!